I think most of our land's being bought up by Chinese right now.
Well, that's again, I don't ever like to that's a fact, first of all, that there's a lot of land buying by the country of China. I don't ever like to broad brush a particular nationality or demographic. I think that's unfair. I wouldn't want people to do that to me. But we know China is one of our biggest geopolitical opponents.
Yes.
Right? They are not looking out for our best interests in any way, shape, or form. 24,000 Chinese were arrested crossing the border last year. We've already exceeded that much.
That's spot on. We were actually looking this up before you came in here. I think that was the exact number, right, Steve?
Yeah. And I think we've already exceeded 24,000 6 months into this fiscal year. I've been down there on that border. Some of those images we showed earlier down there in Lukeville, been down there where you'd see 20, 30, 40 Chinese nationals.
Is it true they're all military-age men, too?
Yeah. Well, they're not all military-aged men. A lot of them are military-aged, but there are some females in there. Okay. But what I've seen, and I can say this with, hand raised, what I've seen, 7 out of 10 have been military-aged men. There were females in there. There were some small family groups in there. Here's the thing, and again, they're very stoic. They're very transactional. You don't get a story out of them. We have to use translation services to get information out of them, just to do basic paperwork to process them. If they do speak English, it's very, very limited, or they're just not sharing it with us. So it's unlike any other country we've dealt with, because sometimes even the ones from former Soviet countries and some of the Middle East countries, they'll talk. Chinese nationals don't say much. And so we're relying heavily on the translation services to get us the information. And, that to me is kind of a concern, because we didn't deport 24,000 people back to China. And China is one of those countries where you're allowed to leave. In other words, you have to get almost like permission to flee. For the longest time, I think if you even look at those numbers, if you go back the year before last, I think
you're not allowed to leave.
Yeah, you're not. Right. You have to almost like get permission to leave China.
Right.
Yeah, it's so controlled. Mm-hmm. I think if you go back and look at the numbers, I think in 22, maybe 450 Chinese nationals were arrested. And then we went up to 24,000.
450 in 2022?
Yeah, I think that was the
Can
number.
You find that, Steve?
Yeah. You may be able to find that in some of the websites, but I think it was such a low number compared, and then we're up to 24,000. I mean, it's like, why?
Is it true that some of them, they found a bunch of them that were connected to the PLA, the Chinese military wing?
Yeah, they're all related to that. I mean, again, that's one of the things that people don't understand about other countries. We really have it made here. Yeah. These people are all kind of connected and forced to do certain things for their country, right? There's that side. I will tell you that there's a lot of misinformation that goes on out there. It's good story, good headlines. There's a lot of people that will delve into something, but there is a lot more truth than fiction when it comes down to some of these specific countries. I am. Again, I'm not saying every one of them have bad intents, but given all the issues that we're facing around this globe right now. That's one country that I would be concerned with, because I just think if something was to happen, where is their allegiance going to be? Did they really flee China because it's so oppressive and bad? Or, that's another problem. The other thing, too, for people to understand is that Mexico just, again, resumed. Yeah, there you go.
What is that? In 2023 alone, more than 12,000 were arrested at the northern border crossing into the United States illegally. That's 241% increase from just 3,500 arrests in 2022. In 2021, more than 450 Chinese nationals.
Yes, I was close. Just
450.
Yeah. I mean, that's just crazy, right? Now they're having Mexico has resumed direct flights from China. So,
That's kind of scary.
Yeah.
Mexico's got a very strong footprint China has a very strong footprint in Mexico, and a lot of leverage and influence within the cartels, and they're mining lithium there, and the cartels are helping protect those lithium mines. There's literal Chinese chemists coming into Mexico, teaching these cartels how to produce fentanyl. fishing.
What China is doing is what we have done forever. They've just followed our. The 100-year war is kind of what the people talk about with them. It's a marathon for them. I think they've taken up all of South America. They are looking this hemisphere at a time. While we're busy infighting and using lawfare against former presidents and trying to keep other people off ballots and doing this and sending money to around the world, China's just slowly monopoly building everywhere because they've got the money. They're back in Africa helping build nations out there. They're, to your point, they're working directly with the government of Mexico and Central America and South America. I don't know about Central America, but South America. The fentanyl is flying in or coming in from China into Mexico. It's a concern. And the fact that we have just, make it, again, so vitriolic to even talk about it. From a national security, it's like it makes it challenging for people to just have a conversation about, hey, what about taking care of America? What about, if you turn around and say, well, America first, well, that makes you a white nationalist. Well, it just makes me an American that says, I think we need to take care of America. Charity starts at home. When we no longer have homeless veterans and hungry veterans and homeless children and hungry children and fentanyl poisonings and things like that, when we're actually moved up in ranks in education, then we can start worrying about everything else. I do think we need a timeout to kind of clean up our own mess, and it starts secure the border and take it so we don't bring any more poison and problems into the country, and start working and cleaning up our own situations here. Look, I didn't read this in any book, but people talk about. That's kind of how the Roman Empire fell. It collapsed from within, and that's how this republic would fall. I think they're not going to attack us from the outside. They're going to just allow this continuing to infight and divisiveness, and just we're going to implode.
Yeah, it makes me wonder when you see so many foreign nationals coming in from into the southern border, especially like Chinese. So the Chinese are going into Mexico and then coming across the southern border. Yep. Well, according to that, the northern border too, right? Both. So, it makes me wonder if there's some bigger influence behind all this, kind of orchestrating it. Is there some sort of plan to overwhelm America's border security system and our welfare system and everything like that, to force us to rework our policies and to rework our laws and to create this sort of internal chaos? That's always something you think about too, especially when there's people coming across that are military age, coming from Venezuela and China and all these other countries that China has so much influence over. Yeah,
so you bring up really, really interesting points, and I think one of the things I love to talk about is just are these type of thoughts, right, that cause people to pause. Now, I don't have any official knowledge of any of this from my time as a Border Patrol chief, but as a career law enforcement, these are the type of things you are a planner. It's the reason why our military does 50-year planning. Who thinks about 50 years ahead of now? But the military does. So I have heard in various circles, both in the media and a lot of our politicians, especially a lot of the progressives, talk about how the Constitution is an outdated document. It needs to be so. That's kind of where your comments and your thoughts start making sense. If we can, implode the system, if we can break the immigration system by overwhelming it, and somebody can come in and say, all right, well, this just isn't working. We've got 20 million at least illegal aliens that have been in this country for the last few years. We just need to give them an amnesty, and then we need to rewrite it. We need to have this more open policy. Well, then they win, because without a lawful, controlled immigration policy, and they get to get this open border, and then all of a sudden it becomes, well, they're here, so they might as well be able to vote because they're influenced by what, and we just start tearing down the whole, Constitution and the amendments and the laws that are this so they can rework the system. That's why we are still the only republic that's lasted this long, because we've been able to defend that living document. And we've got rules to add amendments. Just none of the states have ever come together to make any amendments in any recent years.